Yo, 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 what's going on? Welcome back to Forgiven AF podcast. Remember, this is a Second Chance podcast. We use this as marketing material for our nonprofit, our Second Chance Mentors program. I'm your host, Shawn Surface. So super excited to be back with you guys again this week. Got a little bit of a different setup, but first I want to share with y'all something that happened last week that was really special to me. So since I got out of prison in 2016, I haven't stepped foot back into a facility. Even though I've wanted to, I've just kind of been, I don't know if it was dragging my feet on it or maybe the right opportunity just hadn't presented itself. But kind of a cool story. I was at a Spartan race and I was wearing my Second Chance Fitness shirt. And a man and a woman kind of stopped me and they were like, "Hey, can you explain to me what that Second Chance Fitness shirt means?" And I said, "Yeah." So I just ran through a quick rundown of my past and, you know, how I got in trouble and going to prison and then what we have going on now. And the guy was like, "Man, this is so crazy, but I felt like God told me to ask you that because I'm the prison pastor for Gateway Church." And I don't know if you guys are familiar with Gateway Church. It's Robert Morris is the head pastor. It's a huge church. I think it might be the biggest church in the United States. They have campuses all over the place. Maybe not the biggest. Don't fact check me on that. But they are a very large church that's doing a lot of amazing things. And we had kind of kept in touch over the past few months. Well, he reached out to me. Stephen Wilson is his name. He's the head of all Gateway's, prison campuses. And I think they have 6 different prison campuses, which is freaking amazing. And he reached out to me and asked if we wanted to come to their first recovery house graduation. So Gateway sponsors, pretty much pays for all this programming and stuff to take place in these 6 locations, and asked Christy and I if we wanted to go. Walking in, I literally thought that there was a chance that I might throw up. I felt sick to my stomach going behind that barbed wire willingly this time, though. But it was, I can't even describe the feeling. But so it was really awkward. But once we're in there and we're talking to these men, the first guy that I got into conversation with as he was graduating, I explained how I did, around 6 years. And I was like, "So how much time you got left?" And he goes, "I got life plus 20. So the guy was not getting out. And something really hit me about that because you think to yourselves like, well, why would this guy even go through a recovery program if he's not ever getting out of prison? But he's still choosing, even though he's in there for the rest of his life, to try to live a clean, healthy, productive life. And be able to help other men that are getting out. And it just really blew me away. And it made me realize I need to step it up. What I'm doing, I could be doing more. But just listen to this guy who's never going to get out of prison, who was in there for murder charges, but has now, dedicated his life to recovery and helping these other men in recovery. I just wanted to share that with you guys because I thought it was really special. And what they did, they asked me if I would set up a fitness program for these guys that go through this recovery house program. So they asked if I would set up some sort of 6-week training schedule, maybe make it a competition. Still trying to come up with ideas of how exactly to run it, and because there's a lot of rules that you have to go with. But just if you guys pray, that's something. Pray for me about that we set up a good program and that we can have some impact with these guys in prison because a lot of times those guys get forgotten about. Okay, well, thank you for listening to my story. Now let's get to the show. So today's episode is a little bit different. We're going to do a Q&A. About 5 or 6 episodes, I asked for people to send in emails of any questions that they might have, and honestly, there's a couple questions in here that I sidestepped for a while and wasn't really comfortable with answering, but I don't know if you guys remember. So James Kline, who's on the show with us today, is my producer, and if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't even be shooting these podcasts. I mean, he was the first person when the idea came up that he was so encouraging and pushed me and said, "You can do this. Your voice needs to be heard. Let's make this happen." So first of all, James, thank you for that. And I'm super excited to have you on the show doing this Q&A with me. So thanks for doing this, dude.
Man, I appreciate you, brother. I appreciate you always, man. If I could, man, I just wanted to say on record, on camera, man, I appreciate, not only our business, but, man, I appreciate more than our business, your friendship, because, you've been solid since day one, man. We've always shot straight with each other. We clicked in, we have a mutual love for God. We try to do the best that we could do in the universe. We always trying to reach across the aisle and help people, man. And I just see, it sounds crazy, but I see so much of me in you, and I'm pretty sure you see some of you in me. That's how we kind of built our friendship. So
100%.
So I appreciate that, brother.
Yeah, thank you. And I agree with you 100%. I feel like right away we just kind of clicked. It was funny because we had actually already met.
Yep.
But then Corn brought me over here and I was like, oh man, how funny is that? But
It's like a family reunion.
It was like, it's funny. But all right, let's get into these questions. So go ahead. You got it.
Okay, so I do want to tell you that you had an awful lot of emails, but we kind of took it upon ourselves to kind of curate, go through some of them. Some of them was super wild. We probably can't ask them on air, but some of these questions that I'll be asking today, it's kind of like a lot of people was asking the same questions. So I kind of randomly picked somebody who asked the question since so many people asked the same question. But this one, the first question, actually she has 3 questions on the same email. It's from Alicia in Dallas, Texas. And it says, do you want me to ask you one at a time?
Yeah, let's just do one.
Okay, one at a time. Okay. How did you get the idea to start Second Chance Mentors?
Oh, that's a cool question. So after I'd been out for about 2 years and our first gym was cranking and doing good, I literally was in prayer, like saying, God, what's my next step? Should I open another location? What should I do? And about that same time, I got invited by the head homicide detective in Arlington. His name was Robert Walsh, to come share my testimony at a school in Arlington called Turning Point. So I went to the school. These kids were so engaged. I mean, I wore some like Dior Jordans, so they were all like, right away we had a connection. And they were asking about the shoes and then asking about, everything I'd gone through. And then at the end, the counselors, these boys were super, like you could tell they were like thirsty for I felt like they were thirsty for like a male influence, And at the end, the counselor came back into the room. He was like, hey, how many of you guys have a male father figure or role model in your life whatsoever? And only 3 of the 33 kids raised their hand. Wow. And literally driving home, like I don't need to be tough. I cried. I was like, I felt like God was saying like, this is what I want you to do. Like, this is what I want you to try to find a way to get into this space. I didn't know anything about nonprofits. I didn't know anything about nothing about mentorship programs. I just literally got home, started doing some Google searches and applied for the 501c3 that day. Used a couple connections that I had in the gym with some principals that got me connected with the Phoenix Academy, which is the alternative school in Mansfield. And man, we just jumped all in, and we're still just trying to learn it as we go. But I figured normally I sit around and wait until everything's perfect because I don't want to mess up. But I felt like God was just saying, get your feet wet.
Wow. Man, that's dope, man. I didn't even know that, and we've talked, several times about different things, but I don't think I ever asked that question specifically. But that's good to know, man. That's interesting, bro. And it's a great reason to do what you're doing because you was moved to do it.
Yeah,
I feel like you was moved by God to act on what you was doing.
I think so too. And he's been involved in everything. You could tell the whole way.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, the second question Alicia asked was, let's see, what do you think is the most important quality in a mentor?
Oh,
like you personally.
Yeah, that's a great question. For me, it's consistency. It's a lot of these boys and girls too, but a lot of these boys have had men come in and out of their lives. And haven't stayed there or, have made promises and haven't kept them. So, yeah, there's a lot of things that make a good mentor, obviously honesty, but consistency is the biggest one that makes a difference because they show up when they say they're going to show up. After a couple months, they don't get bored and turn around. You can, as a mentor, you're going to make mistakes. There's times I give a boy some advice, and I'm like, maybe that wasn't the best advice. But if I'm consistent and I'm back again, I can correct. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it's just a growing process between us and the boys because most of the time it's extremely awkward when I pair a 50-year-old man up with a 16-year-old boy and try to form that relationship. The first couple of times are awkward. I've got some mentors that haven't even been able to do it. They're like, Shawn, I just don't know what to say. But it's not about what to say. We have to prove ourselves to these boys in the beginning that we're going to keep coming back. So I think consistency is probably the most important thing when it comes to mentorship.
Wow. And this, listening to you talk, I got a question now. So let me know if I'm.
No, go ahead.
But so do you ever feel like you bit off more than you can chew with signing on as a mentor? Because I know you really go hard for these kids, man. And you was just kind of saying some of the things that, man, it's sometimes it's a lot going on. But do you ever feel like, oh man, I really just don't have the energy to be a mentor? Do you ever
100%. So, and it's not to be a mentor more so, it was kind of running this mentorship because I said I just jumped out there and I wanted to help so many kids. We got up to 10, 11, 12 kids fast, right? And I had no structure, no organization. So I'm literally texting 12 kids every day, got to pick up 12 kids when we have an event, and it was just, I was getting run down. And God put the right people in at the right time. Greg Potts, who's pretty much taken us to the complete next level. He's just organized, and he starts structures now where the boys get an email check-in every month. So it's not like I'm having to reach out and do it. Because I want to be like the hands-on, the face, I'm doing this stuff with the boys, but the back-end organization stuff is what we were lacking, and now I'm gotten help with that. So I think I've overcome that. But yeah, there's times where it's like, man, what did I get myself into, for sure?
So the structure of it was
necessary.
What you had to kind of get.
Needed to get structure and organization, yeah.
So you kind of made reference to the boys a couple of times, which is kind of funny because it kind of ties right into the third question is, what's one piece of advice you would give yourself at 16? Because I know some of your boys are right in that age range, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what would you what would you tell yourself as a 16-year-old, which is kind of what I would imagine you're telling the boys right now?
Yeah, I've got a couple. I've got two. One is very vulnerable. The second one, I'll start with the one that's not vulnerable. The first one would be, don't be scared to fail. Like, I lived my life worried about what other people think about me. I still struggle with it. But it holds people back from like taking chances that it takes to be successful, right? Mm-hmm. Like, oh, I don't want to go apply for that job. What are they going to think if someone like me goes to apply for this job? Like, I'm too worried that they'll make fun of me for even trying. And that's the type of attitude or the type of mindset that just keeps us down if we're not willing to jump out there and fail here and there. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's how we get successful. The second one, this one's a little bit more vulnerable, but I'm just going to put it out there because if it can help one kid or one person can hear this, is staying away from pornography at a young age. It's ruined so much as far as like when you're actually then with a woman, you know what I mean? Like expectations or the way you treat them or just, and it's something I don't struggle with anymore. I've beaten that for years now. I haven't since before prison.
Can we unpack that a little bit?
I think we should.
Because as a man, I'm 42, about to be 43, and like I said, we have a lot of parallels in our lives.
Yeah.
And as a young man, now that you put it in words, you attach a name to it. I think I had a problem with that too, as a young man, because it seems like for me, I was just a horny little devil, I had girlfriends, I was active sexually, but I always aspired for what I saw in a flick, right? And I do think that it can cause people to have an unhealthy expectation when it comes to
women,
to women, right? Yeah. Because these people are doing stuff that they're getting paid to do. They're actresses. They're kind of a little over the top with different stuff, and some people are a little more modest, a little more humble, and they're not just gonna wild all out like that. You might find the occasional person like that, but that's not going to be the norm.
No, you hit it right on the head. It's the unrealistic. Think about this. Guys are funny. Guys want to have a girl who ain't been with many guys, but then they also want to have a girl who's going to hang from the ceiling fan doing some crazy stuff, right?
Right.
So we can't have both. You know what I mean? Like maybe you said you can kind of maybe every once in a while,
right?
But that's not the norm. And then what you're doing is sometimes you have these expectations of a girl who's, it's just just tough, and
it's better for them to not experience that,
to not have to go down that
road. these expectations,
of women that are not realistic.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean, and therefore causes you to make a girl maybe feel like she's not as fun, or when you should be honoring and respecting this girl. So that's kind of just. And it also, it's such a dopamine rush. There's so many studies. I would like to have a whole podcast one time just on that, because it's ruining the kids' happiness, because you have all this dopamine rush every time you do that. So then regular things in life that should make you happy don't have the same effect. So there's just so much to it.
I think it's more men than would probably talk about it, because there's a reason why that was like one of the biggest industries at that time. Yep. Because there was so many people either consuming the products or involved in the industry directly. Yep. So, but no, that's interesting. We might need to talk about this again on a separate show, man. But I do, I would like to add too that that young men need to, if at all possible, stay away from that. Just stay natural and stay the course of, keeping so much influence or television, this fantasy world out of your life, because it does create unrealistic expectations and, it can mess up a lot of relationships.
Yep.
I believe.
I agree 100%.
So, yeah. So I'm sorry, bro. I just
you're right. I mean, it was an awkward one to go into, but I tell you guys, I want to try to be as real as possible when we talk on this show, and that's something that I know that a lot of boys are struggling with.
Yep.
Girls too nowadays. So.
Oh, definitely. Oh man, that's a whole nother conversation. We need to have that one day too. But most certainly, I think young people. I'll say young people because they're searching, and it's so much that's being pushed out to them in the universe. And man, that's a whole nother bro. We just probably need to stick to these questions. Look, I was about to say that it's so much that's being promoted to these young people nowadays that they can be involved in a lot. Much like we seen the porn commercials and all that type of stuff that pop up in the middle of the night. You remember Cinemax and all that stuff that pop up at 12 o'clock and when we supposed to be sleeping. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, what's this? Let me watch this at 13. Because it just pop up. But now it's so much that pops up for young people. And let me know if I'm going too far into it, bro. But so much is going on right now with young people being influenced by television and other things that it's just so much that I really feel like it's affecting the kids adversely.
I agree.
Because 100%. They're not mature enough to kind of decipher through a lot of that stuff. For one,
I agree, and that's why I think a lot of this stuff needs to be kept out of schools at that age too. I mean, these boys and girls, they're not even old enough to really understand what's going on, and we're trying to teach them about things in 3rd, 4th grade. That's another one we could say is another topic, but it's just something you got to be careful about.
Yep, absolutely. But we're gonna come back on another episode and talk about that.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah. So this is from John in Houston. Say, what's your biggest regret?
Ooh, that's a good one.
You got a couple of them, though.
Yeah, I'd say my biggest one. Man, I've got a lot of them, but this is a huge one. Is when I went to the Marines. And it was something that I finally thought that I had it under control. Like I got my life together. I was a squad leader in boot camp, then went to advanced infantry training. I was killing it, and then came home and relapsed. Went back and got kicked out of the Marines. Everyone says God does everything. Things happen for a reason, and maybe none of this would be possible if I would have stayed in. Maybe something would have happened or whatever. But that was something that was just it's just a decision that I made. And I even remember making the decision to get high and just immediately feeling the shame and the regret and knowing man, I think I just messed something else up. So I think that was a big one. Mm-hmm. Obviously, continuing to sell drugs once my son was born was a huge one because I missed the first 6 years of his life.
So what you got popped with when you went back?
When I ended up getting arrested.
Was it weed that you?
No, my case, I actually went for possession with intent to distribute.
No, I'm talking about when you went back to the military.
Oh, when I failed a drug test, partying cocaine.
Oh, was it cocaine?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And a party, yeah.
So, but that happened on base?
No, it happened. I was on leave, so I got to come home for a week.
Yep.
And thought that, oh, man, I got 6 days. I can just party for the first 2.
Yep.
And that's not how the military drug test can test back a week or so, even longer, because they test for what breaks down the drug. They don't even test for the drug, so they're far more advanced.
Wow.
Yeah, it was. And I think I knew that. That's what was another regret.
It's I just made a dumb decision, and I knew it was a dumb decision.
Yep, bad decision making.
That's not a good regret, but that's a good thing to know that you did wrong.
Yeah.
Yep. So this is from Jen in Baltimore. Where is Baltimore, bro? Maryland?
Maryland, yeah.
Baltimore, Maryland?
Mm-hmm.
Baltimore. Okay, this is, what was it like serving time in prison, and how did you stay positive? I guess that's a 2-part question.
Yeah, but that's a good one. When I first went to prison, I remember having this conversation with myself. I had 2 options. I can sit here.
Did you cry, bro? Tell the truth.
Yeah, I got a funny story about that. When my pre-sentence investigation came back, your pre-sentence investigation is initially what the courts are recommending you get time-wise. Mm-hmm. Now, what the probation officers that put these together, their job is to make you look as bad as possible. I mean, and just throw as much crap against the wall as they can and see what sticks, right? So I've been now incarcerated for about 3 weeks before this PSI comes back, pre-sentence investigation. Mm-hmm. I open it at mail call, and it's recommending that I have 19 years in prison. First time I've ever been in trouble. This is my first felony. You know what I mean? This is the first time I've been in jail. and my pre-sentence investigation comes back 19 years. I just
Why? I mean, did they give you any reason why they recommended?
Tons of reasons. For everything they could possibly think of, they would add on points. So like they said that my case involved importation of drugs, right? At this point, I'd never even been to Mexico. So it wasn't like I was importing the drugs, but the guy that I got them from was getting them from somebody who was getting them from somebody who was bringing it from Mexico. It seemed, and we fought that hard, and because we were like, how is, like, almost all drugs are coming from Mexico. Like, someone gets caught with anything, you're just going to say that it's imported? Like, shouldn't there be knowledge of, that shouldn't I have had to have knowledge of where it was coming from? But anyways, we lost a couple of those little things, but a couple we got down. So initially I was sentenced to 13 and a half years. They sent me to the first prison, which is Oakdale, Louisiana. And that's when I was like, look, I got two options, man. I can sit here, feel sorry for myself, or I can literally just figure out every single opportunity that I can have over these next, at the time I'm thinking 13 years, so I can just be focused and ready to go when I get out. I remember thinking, I counted this probably 100 times. If I got 13 years and I do 11, my son will be 7 when I get out of prison. Like my son he'll be 11 when I get out of prison. So I'll have 7 years left before he turns 18. Like that math was just playing. How much time will I have left with my son before he turns, you know what I mean?
Right.
So I just got focused, man. I just started spending time in the law library to work on my case. I started teaching GED class. I was working out. I weighed 300 pounds. I started working out at the rec yard every day, started getting in good shape, and all these other older men were like, hey, man, can I work out with you? So I started training all these guys. They were paying me, which was cool to have some money. And then this doctor I was training was like, hey, man, any certifications you want to get while you're in here, I'll pay for them. So this doctor paid for me to get 4 certifications. His name's Sanford Myers, Doc. And he had my back. Like, he didn't have any kids. I felt like he just kind of like took me under his wing. And he was in there for, drugs, but he had a good head on his shoulder. He was a really good guy and really like pushed me to the Lord. And we started Bible study. We had a Bible study going in there. And then when I left that prison, they sent me to Forest City, Arkansas, where I got my associate's degree. Like, I literally just took advantage of every opportunity that you had in prison. And that's how I had to stay positive, was like, no self-pity, because I did this to myself. So I was not going to sit in there and be like, oh, woe is me. Like, I'm so sad. Like, because all the choices were choices I had made. So I didn't have anyone to blame. I probably, I had gotten out of situations in the past that I got lucky and should have probably been in trouble before. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like it was the first time I sold drugs that I got caught. So I just accepted responsibility and figured out what I could do to stay positive. That's So listening to you, and I've had the privilege of hearing certain pieces of this over our relationship. I can say with confidence, but I want you to elaborate. Your son was the one thing that you stayed focused on. I say the one person you stayed focused on to try to make it through your sentence. Is that correct? 100%. My son was like, and my mom and even my ex-wife in the beginning did a really good job of keeping me like able to stay in contact with them. I called every day. If you separate your minutes throughout the whole month, you got 10 minutes a day because you get 300 a month. Mm-hmm. So I was super intentional. I would use my 10 minutes on my son every day. The first, 3 or 4 years was just me talking to him and him probably not even know what was going on. But that was just really important. I had an amazing father, and that was something that I wanted to be too. And I felt like I had messed that up, Luckily, for if you all don't know the story, I did end up getting my sentence reduced because they dropped a gun that was kept in my house legally. They said that it was illegal, so it added 5 years. They took that off. And then, like I say, you'll hear me say all the time, Obama gave everybody 2 years off.
The feds took that off?
Yep. So the feds dropped 5, and that took me to 7. Then Obama gave everyone on a drug case in prison at that time 2 years off. So that got me back down to 7.5, and I did like 6 on it. Mm-hmm. But my whole mindset was not that it was over and that I was done. It was, how can I be ready when I get out?
Yeah, and you done a good job too, bro.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. So that was Jen in Baltimore. That's a good question, actually. This is Vicky in New York. It's you seem to have a heart for the African American community. Where does that come from? I can answer. I'm
glad that you're here for that question for me, because you've been the one that's been able to encourage me that it's okay to, I get all clammed up and awkward when we start talking. I'm like, well, do I say black or African American? I let the small details that are really irrelevant try to trip me up you know me, like, you know my heart, and you're always like, Shawn, stop worrying about those details. Like, we know you, like, we know what you care about, you know? It comes from growing up, man. My dad instilled diversity to me at a young age, like, at how important. I mean, my dad, I remember in Virginia Beach, my dad had a best friend that was a pro boxer, a black dude. He used to, man, we were together all the time. And just so seeing my dad interact like that, and then being in high school, kind of early in high school, I had an opportunity because I was really good at soccer to go play at this Catholic school. And my dad was like, no, Shawn, I really think that you're going to be better off in life staying in public school with the diversity and just learning how to deal with it, you know what I mean? How to interact with everybody. Mm-hmm. And I have so many, because I'm from up north, right? So up north is a little bit different. It's not as like, I don't know, it's not as separate as it kind of is in the South, right?
Right.
And I had a lot of friends growing up, a lot of black friends that I saw not even try to push forward and be what they could have been because they were falling for that narrative of like, oh man, that's for the white boys. That ain't for me, man. I know that I don't have that opportunity. And I saw a lot of really, really smart, so much potential of my like young black friends just go straight to the like drug dealing in the hood because they said that college ain't for me. I can't get into college. I ain't got no money. I ain't got no rich white parents, just that sort of mentality. And I hated that, man, because I felt like a lot of my friends had so much potential and didn't reach for what they could have. And that's kind of one reason why I felt like I've got into what I do, because every single kid has an opportunity to be something special, and when they're getting that from their parents or from relatives, and don't get me wrong, I'll never say that they shouldn't be saying that stuff because what they've been through, right?
No, I was going to say it, bro. It's crazy you said it because I was going to say, man, that comes from the house. That comes from that comes from people that has influence over that child's life, saying that and sowing those seeds and putting that out there. And that once that child kind of, grabs hold of that and starts believing that, then it's an uphill battle for people on the outside.
And that's exactly what I saw of it. But I would never want to like call a parent out or something and say they're wrong because, they might have had a grandparent who was, involved in slavery or maybe been treated, words that shouldn't be used against them and things that have hurt them. And then they maybe have put on they want to protect their kid from having that same hurt. So they put this shell on them. That's kind of how I try to look at it with empathy rather, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But both ways, I mean, I just feel like it's hurting the kids rather than saying, you know what, little Johnny, or you can be whatever you want. Don't fall for that trick. Like push forward, give it 100%. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I just feel like, because I have friends on both sides. I have, black friends that have like y'all that are super successful and that have just said, I'm not going to let race get in the way of anything. But that's because you probably had someone pouring, speaking life into you at a young age that made you feel like that,
Absolutely.
And so I think that's kind of something that we need to work on. But again, I'm not saying that from a place of judgment.
And I think for people watching this, it's important, whether the parents, the grandparents, uncles, aunties, or any type of guardian, or if you just an individual that's old enough to do it, I think it is imperative that people travel and get out and see the world, go places you hadn't, because most of the guys in my hood that kind of was in that revolving door, going in and out of prison, getting, busted for drugs over and over, murder, whatever these guys was into, like it was one common thing that all of them had. They never left that city. They never left the little box that they were in.
It's really true.
But I think, one thing that helped me out so much, man, was being able to get out and see black people living in 2-story houses. My first time leaving Mississippi, I went to Cincinnati, Ohio, and Cleveland, Ohio, and I was seeing like black people with Cadillacs and 2-story houses dressed up in shirt and ties and all of this stuff. And I was like, oh man, I want to live like this. I want one of these houses. I want one of these cars, man. I want to dress up in a suit too. You know what I'm saying? I want to be able to articulate what I'm saying to people in a way that don't sound ghetto too. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And that was, man, that I really do attribute me leaving Vicksburg, going to some of the bigger, I guess we say bigger cities. I mean, at that time, you had all the big car manufacturing companies in those areas or whatever, and it was just a lot going on. The cities was booming and stuff, But
No, that's so good. It actually brings me back to how important representation is, right?
Yeah.
So like getting these boys in our program around other successful, Black men and other successful, Hispanic men, and not like saying there's not a lot of them. They're everywhere. You know what I mean? This isn't saying that it's hard to find them. They're everywhere, but it's just showing these boys that look like you can do this. You know what I mean? Here's one that guy that looks just like you, been through the same situations, and look what he's made of himself. So there's really, so you can too. So yeah, that is important to me, and it's it means a lot to me that that's someone who I don't know what her name was, but notices that. You know what I mean? Like that,
This is Vicky in New York.
Yeah. See, it means a lot to me that someone that notices that, because that is important to me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's cool.
That's cool. Yeah, most definitely. So this one is that's the last one we got here. Jeff from Fort Worth. He says, "Where do you stand with politics?" Ooh, that's a. Cause let me say this because I watched the last episode. Now was it the last episode? Or was the before? It was
the bodybuilder.
Yeah. He was talking about politics and he went in, bro.
I know, and so I hate Let me start off this one by saying
I don't want him to think that. I just thought it was interesting. It was very interesting how all of that came out of him. That's what it was. Okay.
And I love that he'll speak his mind. I've had people on the show, and I'll never ever pick someone to come on this show based off political beliefs.
Right.
I will let anybody come on the show everywhere, either way politically. I've actually been told by so many people, leave it alone, don't answer the question. But I want to, because I want all of our listeners and everyone to know me and know the real me and know where I come from. First thing I'll say about politics is politics is created to cause division and separation, so there's a balance. So one side keeps the other side
race
from going too far. Yeah,
race is too.
100%.
Yep.
Race too.
Yep.
So keep in mind that politics are made to have both sides so they keep each other in check, right? And believe it or not, in our country, I know it doesn't seem like it, but it works, right? Like that's why we have, the scales tip, and then they tip back, and then they tip each direction. But the way that our system is set up, I believe that it works, okay? Mm-hmm. When someone asks me where I stand politically, the first thing I say is if I could take 20% off of the far right and 20% off the far left and just knock them off the edge of the earth, and we're just left with the middle 80% of everybody, then I think that everything would actually be able to work out better and we could come together. I think it's the extreme left and the extreme right that is causing all the friction, but everyone mostly in the middle has interlapping beliefs, right? You agree with that?
Man, let me say this, bro. And I'm not, his name was Kelly Burke. I'm not gonna go, even though I agree with some of what he said, I disagree with some of what he said. But I'll say this. I think if people, when they go vote, instead of being a Democrat or a Republican or an independent or whatever they were raised to be or whatever they feel like they are diehard, whatever, I'll say if you just look at policies and you only look at policies, you'll find out that you have something in common with both sides, right? So if we're just talking about DNR, right? I think sometimes, and this really means something to me, because in the Black community, a lot of Black people they just by default, they're Democratic. And not even knowing the true history of Democrats used to be the Republicans used to be the Democrats, right? You're aware of that, right? You already know that. So some of the things that Black people like about Democrats were actually done by Republicans. It's just they really switched parties, but not to, because I know they asked you this question, but I'm kind of going somewhere. I feel like if you just do your research on the candidate and you look at the policies, I think it's more than likely, if you just take the DNR away from it and just look at policies and say, oh, this positively impacts my family, I'm gonna keep that. This negatively impacts my family, I don't want that. This would benefit, me with my 401k and my health care and that type of stuff, I'll keep that. Oh no, this is gonna raise the taxes on, my house. I don't want that. So when you get through picking through all the things you want and don't want, the policies that are presented to you, you'll find out that you're not a Democrat or Republican.
Yeah.
You just, like.
I agree. I agree 100%.
And I apologize if I kind of ran off. I'm just saying, like, sometimes people wear that badge, they wear that DRR, and
100%.
Yeah.
That's why I think, and I call that identity politics. I don't even know if that's the right term, but what to me that is no matter what they say, you're going to agree with the left side or the right side 100% all in, no matter what they're saying. And that just leads to, you're just picking a team instead of actually looking at what's going on with politics, right? Y'all know God, my relationship with faith is my number one priority, right? So, let me try to think of how to say this. I have a lot of ideas that go both ways, and I'm going to give you some examples. I think, and I'm going to jump right into them. I'll probably offend somebody, but whatever. I think when it comes to the topic of abortion, I feel like if a person is raped or incest or something like that, they should not be forced to carry some baby from someone like 100%. That. But I also don't think it should just be used as birth control.
I agree with that too.
Like just get pregnant, have abortion, get pregnant. So I don't think, so that's where I stand on that. I'm not a hard no. I'm like, there's some situations here where we need to have some empathy and not make a girl carry a baby that was forced on her or something, right?
Yeah, if somebody get raped, bro, that's a hard call right there.
Or if
you're torturing that person.
I agree. So, or if a baby passes away and the mother, like having to wait to get you know what I mean? There's little things like that. But my overall opinion is that it's wrong. So, but I think that there's some gray area in there. But the same thing, another topic on that was something like is guns. I believe that gun control laws are not very smart because I feel that if, let's say, they pass a ban on AR-15s, the only people that are turning in their AR-15s are the law-abiding citizens, right? So now we are left with just the criminals with their guns, and that doesn't seem smart to me. But on this other side of that coin, I don't think there's any reason in the world that an 18-year-old boy should just be able to walk into a gun shop and walk out with an AR-15 that day. I mean, because if he's a hunting trip, he could plan that a couple weeks in advance, right? So I think the age needs to go up to like 25 or something, where like when we get a discount for our license, right, or insurance, we don't get a discount on our insurance till we're 25. Why can we buy? But don't get me wrong, AR does not stand for assault rifle. It stands for Armor Elite. It's the company that makes that gun. You know what I mean? That makes that rifle. A lot of people don't understand that an AR-15 is just a single shot. It's not a machine gun or anything like that. It's just pull the trigger once, it fires once. Just a lot of mixed information about all that. But I say all that to say I'm definitely more conservative. I would say if I had to pick if I had to pick a side.
I'm gonna ask you this, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So I was thinking and I couldn't find anything. I'm not saying it's not out there, but I couldn't find anything that is definitive one way or the other. But can if you've been to prison, you have to go to prison for a certain thing before you cannot own a gun again, right?
I'm glad you brought that up. So I technically, because I have a federal felony, right? Because I was some people's arrests say the state of Texas versus them, right? Yep. Mine's the United States of America versus Shawn Surface. So I am never allowed under any circumstances to own a firearm again. I don't think that that's right because I've never had I have zero violence. You know what I mean? Like nothing on my case had to do with a gun being used illegally or even in furtherance of drug trafficking. It had nothing to do with guns or violence, but I'm never allowed to own one. Now, if I had a state felony, right? If I had got it just as a Texas felony, after 10 years, I would be able to then own a firearm again after that, but only in my home.
So if you are a convicted felon and it's not a violent crime, right? It's not a violent crime and it's on the state level, then after a certain amount of time, you could be eligible to own a firearm.
Correct.
See, I couldn't figure out if the wording, because I didn't dive super deep into it, but I was trying to figure that out. But that's good to know, especially for people who go to prison, who make a little mistake, a little scuff, and they end up going to prison for a few years. Because, I mean, man, you have to have the right to bear arms.
It really sucks.
I mean, I just think that because you got to think about it's a lot of people going to prison, taking pleas. In the black community, I know in my community, and I'm pretty sure this happens in the white community, it happens in the Filipino community, the Hispanic community, probably, every community. But I know in my community personally, I know more than 2 handfuls of people who took plea deals for shit they didn't do. I'm sorry, bro. for things that they didn't do because it was a good chance that they were gonna get railroaded into like more years.
Oh, 100%.
Like this, like if you fight us, we're gonna give you 25 years.
No, that's what they do. That's what they do. They throw so much at you to make you. That's why there's so many people that are not guilty in prison. That exact reason.
Because that's terrible, though.
Take a young. Let's just make this example up. Take a 20-year-old black kid, right, who has seen nothing or seen all the stuff that happens to, with law enforcement and black kids and stuff like that, right? Already terrified of the system. Now they get arrested on something they didn't do. They come back with a plea deal and say, here, either you sign this for 20 years and say you're guilty. Even, you know what? Even you sign this for 1 year and say you're guilty, or we're coming after you for life. They don't think that they have a chance to win this. Now they're signing on something they didn't do. They lose a year of their life, and now they're a felon for life and can never protect their family with a firearm, just like you said. So I feel like that's
and you can't, once you sign the plea deals, you can't go back and fight that.
No,
once you sign, it's like, yo, I agree with you. I'm not gonna fight you. I agree to not get a lawyer and try to.
A plea deal comes with a waiver to ever be able to fight a case.
Yep.
Anytime you plead guilty to something, you're signing saying that, and I never have a chance at this again.
And you know what's crazy about that? I know we talk about politics, but I think this is definitely tied into politics. When people be in jail for like 10, 15, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. You've seen these things, people, 45 years. And then they find out these people didn't do the crime. And then they end up, these, I forgot what they call them. There's like the free something.
It's that Kim Kardashian does it.
Yeah. So, but it's more and more people getting involved. And I think I like that because it's more and more people with money getting involved with it. So that can kind of help push the process further because they have money and connections. But what I've heard from somebody, a family member of somebody who went through that, is when these people get out of prison, a part of their release packet, they have to sign something saying they're not gonna come and go back after the federal government or the state. Bro, it's right, and that's the same thing as a plea deal.
It's just like a plea deal, but now they're just trying to protect themselves from owing the person $2, $3, $4 million or however
they
much.
Should pay the people.
They should, and they do sometimes. Sometimes the people will say no, but here's the thing: you've got a kid locked up for 20 years, from 20 to 40, thinks he's doing life, right? They come at you and say, "Hey, look, man, we're gonna let you out of here, but we need you to sign this." How fast is that person gonna sign that?
They're gonna sign it.
They're going to sign so fast.
I get to go home today?
Yeah, you just got to sign this paper.
But these people destroyed your life, bro, for nothing.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And our justice system needs a lot of work, The sentencing structure needs to change because this is another one. And again, I'm going to try to make this not political, but.
No, but the question was about political.
I know, but you know me, man.
I think you should.
There's some people in office right now. The president of the United States, who was one of the main authors on the crime bills that are the reason we have all of the sentencing stuff that we have right now. And on that, the disparaging in sentencing when it comes to crack cocaine compared to any other drug, when crack is the same drug as cocaine. But look, the white people had coke and black people had crack. It's crack you get almost double the time for as compared to coke. If that's not the most racist thing that you ever heard in your life, like, I can't even fathom how that's, like, there's guys that I was in prison.
And the government knew this. The government knew all of what you're saying, bro. They know where the drugs are. They know when the drugs are coming, when the drugs are, there's going to be
There's no way they didn't know. Like, how can you take the same drug, literally the same drug, one of them you just mix with some baking soda and water. It's the same thing other than that. And one person gets, because it's the community, I think it comes down to the communities where it was.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And we can go even further conspiracy theory, which I don't want to, but talking about how a lot of crack was brought into the neighborhoods.
A lot of times, black people, the reason why the cocaine was they turned it into rocks is because, for one, they had to stretch it. So if you had, think about it. If you're in the hood where you don't have access to all the resources that they have in the white community, you just don't have, $100 to buy, a gram. I'm trying not to. Yeah. We don't know if what kids are watching.
That's
but,
true.
I don't want to be educational when we talk about that. But that's since you already said that, right? You don't want to go out and spend $100. Well, back in those days, $80 or $90 a gram or whatever, and then you go out and that's one person's pack, right?
Yep.
But in the hood, you take that and you'll create.
No, it's true. It's a way to make money, and that it was an epidemic that hurt Black people bad when it came to crack cocaine.
Absolutely.
And they say that the government, some people say, and again, I don't have any factual thing to back this up, but I've heard it a lot of times about how the government brought crack to the hood. Now, I don't know if that's true or not.
Man, I believe that 100%.
I don't know if it's true or not.
I mean, you ever look at the declassified documents in the United States Library of Congress?
No, I know that you're we can't even go there now.
Blow your mind,
when me and you have had conversations about stuff like that, and you've taught me a lot that I didn't have any idea with, especially when it came to ownership of land and remember all that stuff that you taught me with. So,
but one thing I do like a lot is that, when they declassify these documents, if you know where to go to read them, you can read them, and you learn a lot about this country when you read declassified documents.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's a lot of bad stuff in there. My hope, my prayer is that we can all start trying to figure out how to come back together, because
it's happening.
Because when people have power, when we have the power, when we all come together, we tell the government what to do. Not the government tells us what to do. You know what I mean? They work for us. We elect them. They do what the people want, but it's got to be the majority. And if we're split in half, they don't have to worry about that. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's just, so y'all, thank you for listening to me answer these questions. It was kind of fun to just have a different format. And again, you guys all know my heart. I do get funny when we start talking about race, but it's just because it's something that's really important to me. I want to see all kids have the same opportunities. I want to see all people have the same opportunities. And I know that having conversations like this is where it has to start. I know that we're just two guys sitting here in your studio just chopping it up, but I really feel like if we can get these conversations going and let people, let both sides understand both sides' mentality and how we got there and figure out how to make it better, that's my prayer, I'm gonna say this. Skip Bayless, right? Mm-hmm. Shannon Sharp. Yeah.
They have a lot of conversations about race.
Oh, do they really?
And it's always very interesting because Skip Bayless is, well-to-do, I ain't gonna say middle-aged, but well-to-do white guy. I don't know if he's conservative or what, but he is one of the few people in a position to impact change or to help usher in change who owns up to shit, right? Or he'll say, that's true, that's what they did, we should find a way to rectify that.
Yeah.
Man, that's the key right there, though.
I agree.
That's the if you get enough I say white men that are in positions to enact change that really starts to sow seeds back into the Black community and not for profit, not so they can I'm gonna buy all this land so I can maintain the land and to really do some genuine, authentic.
You called it one time reaching across the aisle is what you explained to me. Reaching across the aisle and helping other people up and get back. You know what I mean? Like when you put it into terms like that, I think that really hit home for me with the change.
Oh, but you've been doing that though. Like that's been your thing, period. Like even with with Second Chance Fitness, I get a chance to watch, you train other people sometimes, man, and I see how you train everybody, whether it's a Black lady or a white lady. And I'm not just saying this because you're my friend or we on your podcast. I'm just saying I see this.
Thank you.
These are the things that, that I think when you watch people in their element, when they don't think that you're watching them, you can learn a lot about them, right?
That's good, yeah.
So, but you're the same person, whether you're talking to me or you're talking to, a sister that, might not necessarily be the most attractive sister. You give her the same attention and the same motivation, and there's nothing that you would say, oh, he's being extra nice to her because she's fine. No, bro. Like I've watched this dude train sisters that ain't. Man, that sounds terrible.
I know what you mean.
But sisters that aren't the most beautiful people and people that are, very attractive, and it's the same motivation.
My favorite thing in the world is to watch a person build confidence.
Yep.
Boys, women, men in the gym, anywhere. That's literally my favorite thing. A girl comes in the gym, starts working out, starts feeling better about herself, starts carrying her head up high, gets a little swag back. Like That's
life changing.
I would do that for free, like without the money, if there was a way that I could support my family with it. Like that's that important to me. Same thing with the boys. So many boys come into our program angry, like they come to the first couple meetings with their arms crossed, just mad.
Yep.
And now I've got pictures of them with, Paul Ficina. I don't know if you remember, he came in here and did the
Yeah, I like
podcast.
him. He cool.
Yeah, he's super cool, but just a 50-year-old, middle-aged, very successful, very wealthy white man who loves pouring into these boys.
Yep.
I mean, he loves it.
No, he cool.
Yeah, he loves it. And now that I've got pictures of these boys hugging on him and smiling and like,
No, he's genuine though.
just
Like
breaking down
people can
Yeah.
pick up on that.
It's true. And that's another one, that lady asked, what is a good quality in a mentor is, being genuine, There's a lot of different ways to look at that. But I think that was good, man. Thank you for doing this with me.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Bro.
Again, I know I said this in the beginning, I wouldn't be doing this podcast if it wasn't for you. Hopefully, someone gets something out of listening to this each time, but I enjoy doing it. So thank you for the push. I love you, dude.
Love you too, bro.
Remember, y'all listeners, you're loved and you're forgiven, and there's nothing you can do about it. So we'll see you in a couple weeks.